Here's a psychology fact you're not ready for. The average person can't sit alone with their thoughts for more than 6 minutes before reaching for a distraction. Not because they're bored, because they're terrified. You felt it. That pressure building in your chest when your phone dies. That panic when the music stops and it's just you and the silence. Most people assume they're thinking all day. They're not. They're running. If sitting still feels unbearable, this video is about you. There's a tension you've been carrying that no one talks about. It sits in the space between scrolling and sleeping, between answering messages and actually saying what you mean, between knowing something's wrong and admitting what it is. You fill every quiet moment, not intentionally, instinctively. Music while you work, podcasts while you walk, videos while you eat, noise while you think. But here's what you haven't considered. The discomfort you're avoiding isn't coming from outside. It's coming from within. And it's been waiting. This isn't about screen time. This isn't about meditation apps or digital detoxes. This is about the person you become when no one's watching. Including you. You're not addicted to your phone. You're addicted to not feeling what's underneath. The scrolling isn't the problem. It's the symptom. Every time you reach for a distraction, you're making a choice. You're choosing noise over confrontation. You're choosing movement over stillness. You're choosing performance over truth. And the pattern runs deeper than you think. You curate yourself online, not because you're vain, but because you've forgotten what you actually feel when no one's performing back. You keep yourself busy, not because you're productive, but because stopping means facing the questions you've been deferring. You avoid silence, not because it's empty, but because it's full. Full of doubts you haven't processed, grief you haven't acknowledged, anger you've been swallowing, dreams you've been betraying. The modern world didn't invent distraction, it perfected it. But distraction has always been the same thing, a delay tactic against yourself. You know this already. You feel it in the moments between tasks, in the seconds before sleep, in the strange guilt that follows an hour of scrolling when you meant to do something else. That guilt isn't about wasted time. It's about avoided truth. 23 centuries ago, there was a man who made people so uncomfortable with silence, they killed him for it. He didn't write books. He didn't build temples. He walked through Athens asking questions. Simple questions, unbearable questions. What is virtue? What do you actually believe? Why do you live the way you live? Most people couldn't answer, not because they were stupid, because they'd never stopped long enough to ask. They spent their lives moving, working, talking, debating, performing, but never examining. And when forced to sit with those questions, they discovered something horrifying. They didn't know themselves at all. The life they were living wasn't theirs. It was inherited, assumed, automatic. This wasn't philosophy to him. It was surgery. He believed that an unexamined life wasn't worth living, not as a metaphor, as a diagnosis. If you never confront what you actually think, what you actually want, what you actually fear, you're not living. You're reacting. You're a collection of other people's voices, expectations, and scripts, dressed up as a personality. And the only way out was the thing everyone avoided. Being alone with your own mind long enough to hear the truth. But here's what he understood that we've forgotten. The truth doesn't arrive in insights. It arrives in discomfort. You already know what I'm talking about. You've felt it in the moments you can't explain. The heaviness after a conversation where you said what they wanted to hear instead of what you meant. The hollow ache after achieving something you thought you wanted. The quiet rage when someone asks, "How are you?" and you say, "Fine," because the real answer would take an hour and scare them away. You've built a life that looks functional, maybe even successful. But somewhere underneath, there's a voice you've been silencing. Not the voice of doubt, the voice of truth. It tells you when you're pretending, when you're performing, when you're betraying something essential just to keep things smooth. And you silence it. Not because it's wrong, because it's right. Because if you listened, you'd have to stop. You'd have to change. You'd have to admit that the version of yourself you've been maintaining is exhausting. That's why being alone with your thoughts feels so hard. It's not the silence. It's what the silence reveals. It reveals that you don't know what you actually want anymore. It reveals that you've been so focused on being acceptable, you forgot to be honest. It reveals that the life you're living might not be the life you'd choose if you had to choose again, right now, with no one watching. And that's terrifying, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Awareness doesn't fix you, it exposes you, and that exposure is exactly what you've been avoiding. Not because you're weak, because you're human. But here's the part no one tells you. The discomfort you're avoiding by staying distracted is the same discomfort that would set you free. You can't think clearly while you're running. You can't know yourself while you're performing. You can't become who you actually are while you're pretending to be who you think you should be. The silence you fear isn't empty. It's honest. And honesty is the only thing that actually changes you. Not motivation, not distraction, not another strategy or system or app. Just the brutal, clarifying truth of sitting still long enough to hear what you actually think. That's the work. That's always been the work. Not fixing yourself, knowing yourself. And knowing yourself requires the one thing the modern world has taught you to avoid at all costs: being alone with your thoughts. If you made it this far, you already know this wasn't made for everyone. This channel isn't for people looking for comfort. It's for people looking for truth. No hype, no shortcuts, just the kind of thinking that stays with you after the video ends. If that's you, you belong here. So let me ask you this. What truth have you been avoiding by staying busy?